Is it time to worry about the Edmonton Oilers' top trio, Bouchard, McDavid, and Draisaitl's contract extensions? We'll get into that today here on Oilers Digest, but before we get into all the breakdowns, all the news on the rumors, make sure to subscribe here to the channel, as 89% of you watching these videos have not yet subscribed. Make sure to do so as we get into the contract news and everything and anything about the news leading into training camp and into preseason and eventually into the regular season. But without further ado, it's been a never-ending summer. Yes, when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, they had the fantastic Canada Day signing Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner. They went into the Stan Bowman fiasco, hiring him as the new Oilers general manager. We had the offer sheets, and now we get right back into the Leon Draisaitl talks back in July. We did have some news regarding Leon Draisaitl, some speculation, if you will, but we will get into it furthermore from the Too Much Hockey podcast, who really established themselves into, the whole speculation game when it comes to hockey Twitter. They have an update on Leon Draisaitl and his extension talks. They say 8 years at $13.5 million AAV is the deal that gets this done. And they add, here's why. Leon Draisaitl is scheduled to be in Edmonton within the next couple of days. Of course, he was in Europe, back home to Germany for the summer, but he's coming back over to North America. This was a week that was very important to get this done. Talks will pick up as him and Stan Bowman will meet in person. Of course, Stan Bowman at his introductory press conference with Jeff Jackson in front of the Edmonton media, he said that Draisaitl's contract extension was priority number one. If there's no deal to be signed before September 19th, of course there's a deadline of September 19th that is set here, Leon won't negotiate during the season. The goal is to get this done before that date, as Leon doesn't want this to be a problem or a distraction going into training camp. And then there's a quote here from Draisaitl's agent Yuri Poner before the whole offer sheet fiasco here at the beginning of July. He said there's no rush yet, but it either happens quickly by the end of August, as of right now, which is 4 days away, or it doesn't work out at all. It will also become clear whether Edmonton really wants him or not. Poner believes Draisaitl has been playing at least 30% below his value for several seasons, coming off of a deal that earned him just $8.5 million against the salary cap. It's obvious why he may think that, and of course 30% add that on to $8.5 million, that gets you a little over $11 million. Now, 10 days after the season ended, in Game 7 of the Cup Final, Draisaitl, McDavid, and Bouchard, which is quite an interesting trio to sort of address the Oiler players. Of course, Nuge, Hyman, even a guy like Darnell Nurse weren't joining them, but they were addressed. They had a conversation with them on taking less money to try and win as many cups over the next 9 seasons. Of course, players like Nuge, Kane, Hyman, Adam Henrique, Matisse Janmark, and Connor Brown all took less money, and if anyone on July 1st signs, taking less money would be great for the team going forward, as many of the core players would be sticking around long term. Of course, the July 1st signings, like Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner, they took well below market value to sign with a cup contender in the Oilers. This is a big conversation amongst the players who had the opportunity to sign long term. And of course with Nurse at 9.25 AAV. And if the Connor, Leon, and Evan trio all sign for what the market can give them, in parentheses here, Leon $14.5 million, Connor $60 million, and Evan $12 million, the Oilers would have roughly $54 million tied into 4 players, or as we call it around here, pulling a Toronto. And from what we understand, the players would rather see that number be around $45 million. And Brendan Escott here of Oilers Now with 630 Ched, he was told by Frank Saravalli on Draisaitl remaining unsigned, it's unfair to categorize this as hitting a snag. On a money basis, AAV, I think these two sides are a little further apart than I envisioned, which to some it sounds concerning, but to me that's just standard negotiation tactics. It's nothing different than that the Oilers have ever dealt with before. And when it comes to the contract extensions, I'm not really that worried about it. I know others are, but, it could be a little uncomfortable here. It's not going to get ugly in Edmonton, but again, it could easily get uncomfortable for the duo of Bouchard and Draisaitl. But that's just the reality of existing in a salary cap world where everyone knows what your short-term and long-term financial flexibility looks like. Of course, in the salary cap world, it's hard to keep dynasty teams together, or even just cup contending teams together. Pittsburgh, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Chicago. Stan Bowman has, lots of familiarity with, trying to keep those Chicago Cup winning teams together. Of course, the season after they won each of their 3 cups, the team looked dramatically different. Of course, they kept the core together, but the supporting cast was all different. The longer Draisaitl and Bouchard go without extensions, the more anxious people will get about their future. And from @Hockey Insider here, He said there's a sense amongst NHL executives that there is a 50-50 chance that Draisaitl hits the free agency market, of course. Hockey Insider, not familiar with them at all, but they did get the Line A trade rumor right. But when it comes to, 50-50 chance, some teams did take Draisaitl off their board for the 2025 free agents frenzy next summer. But, I mean, teams should keep him off their board. I think they'll get this done here with ease. Of course, September 19th, there's still lots of time to get something done before that, before, training camp and into the preseason. This won't be like a John Tavares situation on Long Island. Two completely different scenarios here. The Islanders weren't really sure where they were going with their future. Meanwhile, the Oilers, they know exactly what they're doing. They've been to the dance multiple times before, against Colorado, against Vegas, and then finally against the Florida Panthers. So Draisaitl, he knows what's at stake here with, a budding leadership core with, McDavid, Nurse, Nugent-Hopkins, Evan Bouchard. I'm not really worried at all. And then lastly here, we will get into the athletic player cards that sort of shows you, the offensive rating, the defensive rating, and then their market value in salary. So with Bouchard, of course, the offensive side of the game, he is tremendous. The defensive side, could use, a little help, but he's got Mattias Ekholm on his left side to sort of not so much babysit him, but just add the perfect pairing to him, and you can see that market value there. It's a little extraordinary there with 17 million, but the athletic player cards also take into effect what kind of player, Evan Bouchard is, like a right shot defenseman. That's, going to be a superstar. I'll put that out there right now. So 17 million, sure, that's astronomical, but, in today's game, you don't get too many of those. And Evan Bouchard, I think they will get him on a steal contract. And then Connor McDavid here, the prized pig of the Edmonton Oilers. You can see there that market value a little above Evan Bouchard's here, but, Connor McDavid, again, just astronomical in every sense of the word. He's only 27 years old, but he is somehow getting better. And then I think he'll, take a little under 17 million, in my opinion. But again, he's the type of player that you could give a blank check, and he'll sign for whatever. But he might try to set an example for the rest of the team by taking a little bit of a pay cut. I know the Players Association isn't too happy, when stars take these pay cuts, as they want their players, because everyone is a member of the league. They're all playing against each other, but with the Players Association, they're all playing for each other. And lastly here, Leon Draisaitl with his market value at 12 million. I think he'll get a little over 13.5 million, going back to the contract projection here from the Too Much Hockey podcast. But again, Draisaitl and McDavid and Bouchard, all three of those are crucial to the Edmonton Oilers for trying to keep, their supporting cast together without breaking the bank. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the whole contract extension fiasco. What should Draisaitl sign for? Is there anything you wouldn't sign him for? What's the number that would max your cap for him? Let me know down in the comments. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and I'm Matt.